Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Writers Drinking Whiskey. I'm your host and belligerent barkeep that always overserves, William R. Hincy. And joining me today, I'm honored to have you. We have Gabi Lorino. Gabi, welcome to the bar.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Awesome. And so I'll give the Cliff Notes version of your credits and resume here, but you can add in anything you like from there. So I know you have the book, A Magical Time Called Later. You have 4 journals out there, and then you edit the Made in LA anthology series of short stories. I think it's all short stories, right? I've read one of them, but I'm not.
There's a few novellas, but
Novellas? Okay.
I mean, it's a long short story.
Sure.
We have one coming out. It's going to debut at the Festival of Books, and then I believe it's going to be for sale June 1st.
Okay.
On the regular channels. So we're very excited about that. It's the second time I've produced a book and not been in LA to get to see it.
Sure.
A little bittersweet, but I'm happy to still be involved.
Right. Yeah. So you're not in LA anymore. Where are you these days?
My husband got recruited by the company Sweetwater, which makes audio equipment, musical instruments. I am now the proud owner of 5 ukuleles. Only one is decorative. As you can see, they called him up during the pandemic and said, would you like to interview with us? And would you be willing to move to Fort Wayne, Indiana? And that's when I decided I was definitely going to work remote.
Mm-hmm.
But we have made a home here and we've made friends, and it's an interesting experience. I've lived in all 4 corners and now the middle of America. So I feel pretty accomplished.
So what are we drinking today?
Rum and fizzy water. As you'll see from the video that I put together, sometimes calories catch up with a gal. So maybe you don't want to use Coke as your mixer anymore. But you can still add rum as much or as little as you want. I'm not going to tell you how much. You can add that based on taste and need.
Hi, Generation X. It's Gabi Lorino here. Do you find yourself with extra pounds that mysteriously appear overnight or when you're least expecting it? Have the waistbands of all your clothes shrunk without your say-so, or turned into elastic? Do you go to sleep at night and dream of the days when you could drink whatever you wanted? Me too. So when Bill asked me to come up with a drink, I had to think beyond my old stuff. Too many calories. Delicious, though. So I've switched to flavored fizzy water. This particular brand even has a name that reminds us of handsome Norwegian bands from the 80s, which is an added bonus. Come up with your own ratio. I'm not going to tell you how much rum to put in. It's up to you. But I would definitely recommend that you go with a quality rum. Quality rum, because you want to feel good today and you want to feel good later. And you definitely want to feel good tomorrow. So I always stick with Oh Captain, My Captain. It's just my thing.
Yeah, my go-to is fizzy water. When I was very thin, it used to be ginger ale.
Sure. My wife got so into fizzy water. There was like a period where we had just had stacks of fizzy water everywhere in the house. And then she got acid reflux. And so she was coughing all the time. She sees the doctor and she's like, yeah, so how much fizzy water do you drink? And she basically replaced non-fizzy water. They're like, you gotta cut back. You gotta cut the fizzy water. So we still have some, but it's not. Now it's a guilty pleasure versus everyday, replacement for regular old, tap water.
It does make it a little more interesting to drink water, and drinking water is healthy.
It does.
I hope that doesn't happen to me, but I've had so many out of my diet. God help me. There's one more.
Right. All right. So, and I'm going to be drinking. I'm going to keep it simple since you had the nice video there, but I wanted to share this. So let's see how I can hold it to the camera here. So that's where the title is. Can you see that? Okay. Lost Spirits.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Lost Spirits is a distillery. It began in LA. They have 2 locations now. They have one in LA and one in Las Vegas. And it is run, I think, if I remember right, because we've done the tour in both, but the LA one, they had a lot of the founders as part of the tour. And they were giving it, and so they're like old MIT people and kind of uber nerds and loving it. It's really great. And so they invented this process to age whiskeys and rums, I think is all they do, but basically with really high-powered lights. And they would take you through, but they had made it this kind of do-it-yourself Disneyland with Alice in Wonderland themed, and what is it, 10,000 Leagues Under the Ocean. So all these great things, but it looks like people had put them together on their own. And then they opened the Las Vegas one that is, you know, as Vegas tends to be, 4 times like bigger. So they have like cabaret shows and contortionist and things, and it's kind of a whole experience. And you go in there and you get these fun little if I can hold that up, like golden tickets. So you go and you buy a bottle, so you get the golden tickets, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and you can go back. And I think this is the Vegas one, which they did more like a passport. So shamefully, we've only been the one time, but so it's a really unique distillery. I'm going to have a bottle of a sip of the rum. And you had just mentioned ginger ale, so I'm just going to pour some ginger ale in here to mix it. I used to be a huge, uncomfortably so huge Captain and Coke kind of guy. But as I've matured, I've gotten more sophisticated with my spiced rum drinking. So
Fabulous.
Put that in there. And then the very last bit, I have this fancy cup, if it'll show up there. It's a place where you get to make your own perfume. So we have taken my brother, because get very into perfumes, colognes. I think your fragrance, there's someone of that community would know that I'm doing it wrong. But you can make it. So they used to be a place in San Diego, Tejon, nice little cove off San Diego, where you could go make it. I think they still have. Yeah, I think there's a location in St. Martin in Arizona that's still there. But it's like this beaker cup. So cheers to you.
You.
All right. Awesome. So we know where you are. So I love to just get us rolling with a question that's near and dear to all of our hearts. What really pisses you off? What's a pet peeve, or just something that irritates you that shouldn't or absolutely should in your estimation?
All right. So I've thought a lot about this, and I narrowed it. I condensed it down to, if this were a Jeopardy category, I would call it old powerful men who try to create some idealized fantasy world that only appeals to them and the people like them. So, Bill, can you think of anyone like that? That might be.
Do you have to answer like Jeopardy? Is it like, who is?
Yeah, sure, if you want. Probably not wrong. There's a few on the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely a few that have either been in charge or currently in charge of major countries.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, the way you describe it, you could probably put, men or women on like a huge list that's just in power somewhere. In America, we could probably single out half of Congress and it'd be like, yes, here you are.
Yeah. I will say it's not always women, but I think the ones that have really irked me in the recent past have been men.
Mm-hmm.
The land war, not cool. That breaks my heart. And the stuff that goes on, I spoke with you a few months ago, and there were a few people who didn't have arrest warrants out, but now they do, and I feel a little better inside. that's it. Do you want to have any, does anyone spring to your mind?
You spring some. So I am surprisingly zen about things. And it's funny. I'm almost a fractured stoic. Is that I have tons of things I kind of grew up with that I realized are kind of like stoic traditions. One very primarily with me is I just know 98% of the world is chaos that I have no control over. And that tiny bit that I have is what matters. That's what I can affect. So with that being my point of view, and I've always said it, I said this to my wife, like when we were dating, I think she thought someone was upset with her or something. I'm like, but almost everything people do has nothing to do with you. Even if it's directed at you, it almost has nothing to do with you. So that's kind of always my mantra. So I don't love most politicians, especially if we're talking America. I think we've been mismanaged for a shamefully long time, especially in California, right? You just drive and you drive from LA to where I am 25 miles away and there's just homelessness, the whole time. And to think that's right or natural, right, is shameful. It's shameful that happens. And so I try to do what I can, but I don't have any grudges with anyone famous or not, because what they're doing is them and what I'm doing is me. And I just try to really best I can. And when I lose that, I tend to notice I'm frustrated and, kind of lose it. So I just always try to enter in it, can I just bring this in? What can I do today? Okay. I'm frustrated with this, but what can I actually do in this situation? Exactly. What is that? Namaste. I'm not zen enough to know all the terms.
That's what that means.
Mm-hmm.
It means like no matter how horrible someone is, you recognize that they are also a divine. Mm-hmm. They have a soul.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and I remember that tradition. I had quite a few Indian friends throughout my life, and people I worked with. I was very close, and they had said that when someone comes to the door, you would bow to them, and that's you're recognizing the divinity in them as much as them. So that's why you'd kind of bow. It's in Western culture, a lot of times it's like you would bow to like the emperor, or the king, or something, and it's you're kind of bowing to God as it's represented or manifested in all of us, which is lovely ideal.
I've been doing these journal prompts with my social media. I wanted to do something positive. And the last few weeks I've been doing metta meditation, which is really just, are you familiar at all?
No.
It's 4 phrases and you say them over and over again. You think them over and over again in your mind. It's life-changing. I really recommend it for everyone. But the exercise is you say the 4 phrases to yourself, to a neutral person, to a challenging person, and then pretty much everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So the phrases are, may we be free from danger. May we have ease of well-being. May we have physical happiness. May we have mental happiness. And I mean, there have been days where I've been like on the 5 and I'm in like, I'm stopped and I'm on a overpass and it's shaking and there's a truck, there's the big trucks driving by and my little Mazda's just, and I just remember, on my way to that job being like, may I be free from danger, like I do not like hanging out where I am right now, but I'm just going to try to suck it in and.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in any dangerous situation, in any stressful situation, it's good to wish that for yourself. And the moral of the story is after you've done it for a long time, you realize that everyone's on an even plane and nobody is above or below anybody else. We're all in this together.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. I always like a bit of if people get so sometimes people will hear this on the show, and I like to pull back the curtain. We're like, there's the man behind the curtain. So everyone that comes on the show gets a little like itinerary. It's like the agenda that in theory I'm going to follow, but then I start drinking and it kind of falls by the wayside.
Yeah, I have notes.
So I always like to touch on pop culture here, to some degree, and kind of mix it up. But so one of the things I've thought is interesting right now with pop culture has been going on for a while, but it seems like maybe overdrive in the last 5-10 years is the reboots or the rehashes, the cinematic universe where we just do it. Now there's like multiverses where it's just like it's different multiverse and we just do it. What do you think of this trend, this obsessive reiteration, or not even reiteration, iteration of stories that have already been told versus creating, new works, new stories?
So when I moved to LA, it was 2013, and I left LA in 2021. 2021. And I remember like the first thing I did was join a writer's critique group. And I remember the discussions like coming in, I'm just so green. I've always wanted to do this. I'm so excited. I just want to learn everything. And they always say Hollywood doesn't want new original stories. They do not want them. The only hope that we as an audience have is to look at the independents, the independent films, the self-published books, the stuff you hear about from a friend versus the same stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, we watch The Mandalorian. We have date night every Wednesday. We watch The Mandalorian and we love it. And my husband is like, oh my God, when I was a kid, because he was born in 1971, like, he's like, oh my gosh, when I was a kid, I dreamed about this. There, all the descriptions in the books and everything. And it's so, so wonderful to see it come alive. And don't get me wrong, I think that is cool, right?
Right.
But I also think people are pretty starved for new stuff. And like, if you watched, do you ever watch The Daily Show?
No, not anymore.
So it was Trevor Noah for a long time. Now they have guest anchors. And last week, Dream of My Heart, John Leguizamo was the guest host. He was amazing. And one of his interesting, if you follow him, like you can't help but learn, like as you're laughing, you can't help but learn about a lot about Latin culture. And he made the point in a few places during the show, because he was highlighting Latin people who are distinguishing themselves in the Latin community. And he's like, we're 20% of the population. We're by far the biggest minority, if you even call it that. And, and he was saying, like, we're not represented, the producers and the on-camera talent, and he's like, we're not represented as much in these stories. And I can just think back to my own family. I have relatives that are Spanish and Mexican. There's so many stories. Mm-hmm. There's so many lives that have been lived. There's so much, and frankly, I don't get it. They're gorgeous. Why don't we see more of them on camera, first of all? But like, for real, like, there's a whole universe of stories of people of Hispanic origin that we don't even know, that I would love to watch, and I would love to know Spanish better. So I think that there's a big opportunity. Also, women-led stories, there's a big opportunity for more, because that I always used to hear, well, nobody's interested in that. Nobody's interested in that. Well, that's what they said 25 years ago, and it wasn't exactly correct. So let's move forward,
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, and there's such an indication now where it's like they'll just redo the story and change the races on the cast. And it's kind of silly. It's like, there's so much stories. You don't have to redo the story. Like, we could do something new. Like, there's a wealth of stories from Latin America, from all over the world. It's this tiny fractional amount of them that we just want to rehash, because I think it's like bean counters. That's on a spreadsheet, and you've paid for the IP, I got this IP, now I'm going to make my money off of it.
Worked 50 years ago. Let's just pull that one from the bin. That's terrible.
Right. Yeah, they're talking about remaking Harry Potter already, and I'm like, man, like it used to be when you remade things, there's new technology. We made this movie 50 years ago. We can remake it. Probably not even better, but we can remake it. Maybe, we have nicer cameras, maybe some CGI, whatever it might be. At least there's some thought that you introduce it to an audience that probably really doesn't remember it. It's been a long time. Now this audience remembers it. All the Harry Potter fans know the movies, and now they want to make a show. Okay.
Oh, well, it'll never be the same without Alan Rickman, and that's my final word.
Is there anything that haunts you?
I do have some regrets. And here's the deal. I had a talk with myself during my midlife crisis. And I realized that for all of the stupid, immature things that I said and did when I was under the age of 25 and over the age of 16, everybody else in my group was also that stupid and that young. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to forgive myself, send out some blessings, and hope that they understand. And also, I probably care more about the stupid things I used to do. Hopefully no one else remembers them.
Right.
It would be stupid, just immaturity, just not understanding, not having compassion, not, you come into this world and you feel like you have like super strength for the first 28 years, and you just don't get why people are lazy, and you just don't get why people don't finish school, and you just don't get why, came easy to you aren't easy to everybody else. You don't understand. That's not their path.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. I always remember this must have been 4th or 5th grade. And I had a friend on my street named Danny. And there was, so where I grew up was high desert, the northernmost portion of Los Angeles County, a little city called Palmdale. We were famous in Indiana for a while because Paul George for the Pacers he actually went for a short period to the high school my brother teaches at, Pete Knight High School. And also Afro Man is from Palmdale. So we've got two very distinguished people from the area. But it was growing very fast. And actually for a long time, Palmdale was the fastest growing city in America. And Vegas were kind of going back and forth every year for like 10 years. So from the time we moved there till the time high school, it was almost unrecognizable how much it grew. But there was only a couple boys on the street, and we're buddies. And I remember one of them got a new dog, and I teased his dog. I don't remember what I said. And it was 4th or 5th grade silliness, but it offended him. And he told his mom, and then his mom called and then like berated me on the phone, and then had him come on. And he was like, you made fun of my dog. Stop it. And I felt kind of humiliated from the being berated for it. So then the next day, I got a couple of our friends to I don't know what the right term is, to basically divorce him, and so we stopped being friends. And usually when you're a kid, you stop being friends for a couple of weeks, right? And then it's like nothing happened. You go back. But we never went back to being friends. And so, yeah, and he did move away a few years later, but I always think about that, like, man, that might have been like someone I would be friends with like to this day, but this like silly little, and maybe not, but it was a silly little thing. I always think back on that, like, just like, why, you're young, you do silly stuff, but some of those things still kind of haunts me, like, those chances you have to be better. And then when you fail at them, and I still unfortunately fail at them. I try to do a good job, but it's never 100%. It's like, oh, look, I could have done that. I'm like, but all right, well, tomorrow's another day.
Yeah, no, start trying it. It's important to protect yourself, you know. I had a friend in high school that she just didn't work very hard. She just didn't do her homework. And I knew that if I was there with her all the time and if I forced her to sit down and study, she'd do okay. But she was popular. She didn't want to hang out with me. I was a nerd. And I let her go. And I really honestly don't regret it. And had been friends for years and we grew apart. What made me sad is that she died. And I don't know how. I think it had something to do with diabetes. And I felt sad. I still talk to her mother because I'm like, I miss knowing that she's there.
Sure.
But I mean, I honestly felt like she really wanted to go off and do this thing, and I wasn't gonna stop her, so we couldn't stay close.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the hard part about time, right? I mean, sometimes it's growing up, but sometimes it's just you're friends with, you can be friends with someone in your 30s, and then this time, like, changes, you go on divergent paths, or life circumstances change, and everyone has to make decisions for themselves. So luckily now, though, I have grown in the fact that, like, I'm mostly the one that gets divorced with now. Like, friends will be like, oh, I've had like friends literally email me to divorce me before. So it's that's a growth that I'm not the one divorcing people. I don't know if that's growth or not, but stuff happens.
A little disconcerting. Okay.
I was going to ask you about the trip. So you have the video, the Alaska video. So I'll splice that into the recording here. And the audience will get a chance to see that really lovely video Gabi put together about a trip to Alaska. So I did want to ask you about that, about the trip. So one of the questions, going back to the little itinerary I give everyone, is like, what's a trip that changed your life? And you mentioned that one. So maybe you can explain for the audience why you chose that trip as one that changed your life.
Okay, well, it was more than a trip. It was a whole summer. I had known some people who had moved to Alaska and made a lot of money over the summer the year before. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. But being me, I chose to work at a resort instead. So I didn't make quite the same amount of money as I would have, fishing. It really wouldn't have worked out well, I don't think. But I did have a great time. The people in Alaska are so individualistic, and the place is so wild, like just the wildlife and the scenery is incredible. It's the very top of the Rocky Mountains. If you ever get a chance, I recommend for everyone to go. I just loved it. It really captures the imagination. It's a beautiful place. It is so huge. You'll only get to see a few pockets of it, but I was a tour guide for the summer, and I wore a hideous uniform, and there were 4 guys for every woman where I worked. If you cared about that sort of thing. And I mean, after a while, it's just a bunch of guys. But at first I was like, oh my goodness. And I made some really, I had some really fun adventures. I can't say that I'm really in touch with anyone beyond a Christmas card, and that's like one person. But I had a really great time, and I recognized that I was young, and I wanted some adventure, and that's how I found it. So I fondly, and I'd love to go back.
Sure. Well, I saw a map one time. They were doing maps of the United States, and like one was it showed all the abandoned railway lines, and it just looks like spaghetti. You just look at the continental part of the United States, and it's just spaghetti everywhere. And that's what used to be railroad lines that aren't anymore. There's one for light. They had one for Alaska, where they overlaid Alaska over the continental states here, and I mean it covers most of it. I mean it's massive. Makes Texas look small, right? Everything's bigger in Texas. Like Texas compared to Alaska is not big, so it is a huge place. How did your time there change your worldview?
I always lived in a suburban town or a city, and I always had everything I needed within a 5-mile drive. And you don't get that out there.
Right.
And, you really have to plan ahead and know how much shampoo you're going to need for the next 2 months when you go shopping. And you really have to be on top of things, be organized when you get your supplies. I mean, it's a totally, I think I probably went down to Anchorage twice, and I had to have everything I needed, or else I'd pay like exorbitant prices at the resort for it. So,
right.
So it made me appreciate conveniences and understand how I had grown up with so much. And we do. I feel like I have so many options. I mean, just the shampoo aisle will stress you out after a summer in Alaska, because you're like, what? Choices. But it's a different kind of place, and that's the way it goes.
Right. Yeah, it is interesting, because now and it just gets to be more, right? It's like you used to go to the store, and now it's like, oh, you can store dash it. Oh, you do this. And it's like this crazy, like sometimes I feel like we go too far with convenience. Like it's okay to like leave the house and like go buy your coffee. You don't have to have someone. You don't pay someone $10 or probably more nowadays. Pay someone $20 to go get you a $4 coffee that probably should be a $1 coffee, right? Like, make this ourselves. There's a pot. There's water. Some coffee grounds, like heat. Like it's kind of an easy process. We can make this happen. But I say that just so that everyone knows how much of a hypocrite I am. 1 hour before the recording of this, I did not DoorDash this. In my defense, I did leave the house and drive through the drive-through to get that coffee. But I do occasionally make them for myself, even fancy ones. One of the shows I make a fancy one, so it happens. But convenience is good too. Let's get dip into your writing. So again, I know we have the nice video of you reading. I left my page. It's A Magical Time Called Later. I nailed it, right? Okay. I always want to like mix one word up in these things and mix one syllable up and not pronounce things right. So I did want to ask you. So I know when we talked before, you mentioned that all your writing is set around the holidays. So is there a reason that you like to set everything around Christmas, or I mean maybe holidays more in general? Maybe it's New Year's as well, but
I think it just came about because I used to contract, and I used to get the week between Christmas and New Year's off. And if I had a lot of creative writing ideas, I would write them down. And also, an interesting observation I made is that I would have very vivid dreams and very big ideas in the wintertime. I think it's because you sleep more then. I don't know. Have you ever had that experience? Because it really started happening for me in California with all the rain in the winter. Maybe not that much rain, but some rain.
Well, this year it's, so as we film this, it's April 2023. This was an utterly insane rainy season. I think I've been here over 30 years, the rainiest it's ever been. But I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting thought, right? Because we do sleep more during the winter. You know, that natural biological clock saying, you know, it's dark all the time. You need to go to sleep. So I think that would open you up more to it. I don't know, because we get so crazy, like busy. So it's actually because we're so busy, I feel like I write less. I like a lot of my creative stuff kind of gets put on the back burner. And so those 2 weeks around Christmas, because we like to do, so we usually host Christmas Eve here for the family. And then, you know, close friends, anyone else that's not doing anything that comes over. And then we like to do, we call it a pajama party. So everyone can just come over in their pajamas and we do like a white elephant and, you know, potluck, and just everyone gets together. And part of the reason I convinced my wife to put this bar in is that it kind of becomes kind of the center. Everyone kind of conjugates and things. And so I haven't, because it's probably less. And we just enjoy it. We enjoy family, and, you know, then it's Christmas. We go to my parents. I mean, you know, all of this, but I can see your point. It may be possible. Maybe I need to slow down. I'm losing creative hours.
Well, you have to understand the context that I got married when I was 41. I moved in with my husband when I was 40. And so we were always off in California. Everyone else was on the East Coast or up in Seattle, or, you know, everyone was far away. Sure. And so our Christmas would be him working a lot, because he always works retail. He supports retail. He does IT. So you've got to be there for the big shop. So he'd be working a lot, and I would be between contracts. And so I would have time to write. And, you know, we didn't have, I mean, I think we hosted Christmas once. I think there were 6 of us.
Sure.
That was it. That was the only time. So we, you know, aside from the day of making the sauce, you know, I didn't. So I had the time, but that's, you know, that's different now. So we're closer to family. We make different plans. It's different.
Sure. Do you still notice the creativity increase around the holidays?
And also, I like the holidays for the fact that, you know, those movies that you watch, they're so cheesy, but you kind of crave them anyway, because it's the end of the year. And you're like, give me some good news. It's been a hard year. And now it's dark all the time and I'm tired.
Right.
Watch these delusional movies of everyone falling in love and they're so happy at the end. And it's just kind of like a little, it's like soothing.
Sure.
Not real, but I'm gonna watch it anyway.
Right. It is soothing. Like I love to watch Hallmark movies, you know, occasionally. In fact, my wife always joked with me. She's like, "Why don't you write Hallmark movies?" And I'm like, "I'm not even sure people are writing them, because it could be AI at this point." Because
if you ever want to write one, I would like to write one with you, because I've never had the ability to do it on my own. But when I moved to LA, it was Christmas time. And I remember telling my husband, like, I'm going to write one of these movies someday. How hard? Of course, you know, that's been so long and I never tried.
Right. Sure.
You know, there's definitely a formula.
Oh, there's definitely is. Yeah. Well, I did it. My collection of Christmas stories. They're all satirical. And so one of them is called Hallmarked at Christmas. and it's kind of a send up of Hallmark movies and things, but still kind of happy ending and everything with the formula, but just sending everything up. And having fun with it. So I told her, like, that's my Hallmark movie. And I just, no one will ever make that a movie because, especially not Hallmark. But that's it. That's my Hallmark movie for the world. So do you have any favorite holiday traditions?
Oh gosh. Bolognese sauce, Italian food.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can handle it. And every year that goes by, it's less and less tomato, too much acid. But cooking, I like to put on my headset or put friends on speaker and just have them with me as I cook. That was the thing that I would do. I'd be texting my friends like, who wants to talk to me? I'm making the sauce. And then someone would call and I'd be like, so how's life? What's going on? Tell me everything.
Right.
So making the sauce. We have kittens, so we haven't decorated for a while because they just tear everything to shreds. And we just keep it low key. So it used to be a big family to do when I lived in Florida. But that dynamic changes as you get older and people, places.
Mm-hmm.
What about you guys? Aside from your pajama party, which sounds like fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we do. I think we have a lot actually. So, but we had 4 kids. So we're blended. So I had 2 daughters, and then my wife, when we got married, had our youngest daughter, with her previous husband, and then we had our son. So it's kind of mine, hers, his, or whatever that old show was, or ours. Yeah. And so we had everyone in the house. We have grandkids now. We have 2 grandkids now. So so we decorate. I mean, I probably spend 40 hours decorating the inside of the house. So the outside gets a little underserved because I spend so much time, because I'm our interior decorator with these things, so I kind of do 99% of it myself. But yeah, so usually the bar will be decked out. There's actually still, I think this is actually a sled. It's a Steeler sled, but it's a little sled I forget to put away with the Christmas stuff. So it's here until next year. And then there's Santa, who, here I can maybe push the camera over if he goes over. So he's Scottish Santa over there by the Steeler sign. He's actually a year-round, my year-round friend. So yeah, we do a lot of decorating. The pajama party is definitely one of the highlights we do every year, that we enjoy. And Christmas Eve's even getting kind of crazier because my wife is Chinese, so her side of the family they celebrate with us, but there's not much celebration. So she has a lot of cousins and things around, and not necessarily doing anything. So they come over Christmas Eve, and so we end up with huge parties kind of several times throughout the year, and it makes it hard to wake up and be Santa Claus, but it happens. We've succeeded every year so far, and we'll keep trying to succeed. So as long as we have one believer in the house, so we just like to be together with everyone. That's kind of our thing, is to get everyone together and spend some time.
It's nice to think about starting a new year.
Mm-hmm.
Just putting something away and having a new start.
Right.
That's I'm writing a collection of short stories that take place at the holidays, and that's one of the things where these characters are just like, ugh, can we get over with this year already? We all have those years.
Sure.
That time. And there's that song, "We Need a Little Christmas." I remember my older sister saying to me, now I understand what that means. I
Right.
don't know what the year was. I don't remember if it was a personal thing that happened. It could have been someone getting sick or, other family stresses. But yeah, some years are easier than others.
I've loved our time here. I like to end every show with one way we can kind of give back to the audience here. So if it could be a piece of advice, a life hack, anything that the audience can take away, maybe small or big, that can make their life just a little bit better.
Well, don't worry, I'm prepared. So the key, as I understand it, to making the life that you want is to figure it out, write it down, go over it all the time. So you can do this with a notebook. You can do this with a piece of paper. I actually made a journal that has a very extensive chapter 1 that will teach you, that will prompt you to write down what are the things that inspire you? What are the things that you love? And basically, my advice is to make a list of what you love and what you want to become. Write it down, read through it every day, and it will create magic in your life. Because I think that's important. I want to live in a world where people are happy, where they're getting what they want. We're not all going to want the same things. We're not all going to fight over the same Ferrari.
Right.
When I think about what I want in my life, it probably has nothing to do with what other people need. But at the same time, a ukulele would make me very happy.
Mm-hmm.
Playing my ukulele, having the time to play my ukulele would make me very happy. Other people would think I'm insane. But they would want extra time to cook dinner, or they would want extra time to play their guitar, or they would want extra time to go for a run. Sure. Figure out what would help your life be better. Write it down. Remind yourself that you are working towards it every day. Allow some magic to happen, and it will.
Sure. No, that's lovely. And I think it's a lovely point, too, because I think if you write everything down, you're going to realize most people aren't writing down Ferrari. I mean, it's sure, there definitely will be people writing down Ferrari. But I think most people, you're going to write down time, you're going to write down things you want to do, like activities, places to go, things like that, versus, do we all need like ever bigger and bigger TVs and more expensive computers to put in our pockets that distract us nonstop throughout the day? So I think that's lovely. So thank you for that. And, so this is going to be, I think, the December episode for 2023 for the first calendar year of the show. So it's the most wonderful time of the year as this airs. And it's been wonderful having you here. I'm so glad you could come on. I'm honored to have spent the time with you.
Come to Your Senses, Chapter 1. We sat in wooden Adirondack chairs on my front porch as the light from the twinkling Christmas tree blinked through the window behind us. Across the street, the sun was setting, halfway hidden by the trees, placing a gold tint on everything around us. Jason sat next to me, a bottle of beer in his hand, 3 empties on the brick floor next to the chair. His buddies had dropped him off from a tarpon fishing trip earlier, and he looked sunburned and tired. It was Sunday night, and he hadn't shaved since Friday morning. I've applied in Atlanta and Charlotte. I'll never get anything here. There's no sense in waiting around. Why haven't you given your notice at the pub? He asked. You don't even have anything yet, and you want me to give up my livelihood? You need to put me first, and I'm going nowhere. Jason scowled. We keep having this argument, I shot back, feeling myself blush as my pulse rang in my ears. I thought we'd already resolved it. I make more money, Jason began, getting louder with every word. So therefore, we'll live where I work. End of story. You'd have to be an idiot to think otherwise. He took a final swig and threw his beer bottle into the bushes. I jumped up to get the bottle, then stopped myself. I could deal with the yard mess later. Now I needed to deal with the man mess. Where do you get off being so disrespectful? I said, crossing my arms and turning to confront him. Disrespectful to me, disrespectful to my house. I have an established business here, and I can't move it with me. That doesn't make me an idiot. I was part owner of a pub that my family had run for over 50 years. Since my parents had retired, I was basically in charge of it. Did he really want to bet it all on a corporate career that had so far allowed him to get stuck in middle management? He worked in finance. We were surrounded by that industry in Tampa. He could find another job nearby when he needed to. You're an idiot if you keep giving me grief about this, Holly, he said, leaning forward in his chair and frowning. There was that word again. Darling and honey were on the endangered species list as far as Jason's vocabulary was concerned. At this point, my other names were idiot and damn it. Tell you what, Jason. I'll tell you exactly what kind of idiot I am. He paused and looked ashamed for a second. You shouldn't talk that way about yourself, he whispered. We've talked about this. You need to. We both need to interact better. Maybe the beer is wearing off, I thought. But then my anger rebounded. He just called me an idiot, and more than once. What would you do if you heard someone else call me the names that you call me? I asked. He flinched. I'm working on it, damn it. I said I'd change. He said, standing up to come closer. Can't you see that I get this way because I care about you? Can't you just stop being so emotional? God, you're so touchy. I said I'd change, Holly, and I mean it. We were both red in the face, standing close to each other, our shoulders squared. He was going to change, huh? When had I heard that before? You're going to change? I yelled. You're going to change now when we're supposed to get married in 2 weeks? You're going to finally do it? Really? A flash of anger crossed his face, and he reached out from me, then held back, pinning his arms to his sides and huffing like a bull in the ring. Meanwhile, I'd reached my boiling point. I stomped inside, locking the door behind me, and grabbed a new garbage bag from underneath the kitchen sink. He began to yell and thump on the door, but I tuned him out and tended to my frenzy. Gone were the days of discovering fun quirks about each other and enjoying our time alone. At least when other people were around, he was on his best behavior, but we didn't do so well alone together. Not anymore. From room to room frenetically, I stuffed everything that belonged to Jason into the trash bag. Magazines, t-shirts, pajamas, his awful University of Florida coffee mug. I grabbed that red box that my engagement ring came in. My chest felt heavy as I started to feel a long-suppressed dread at him moving into my house after the wedding. His shadow paced back and forth outside. I flipped on the porch light, turned the lock on the doorknob, and pushed the bag in front of me outside, leaving the door ajar. Here's what I think of how you treat me like I'm stupid, how you try to tell me what to do, how you put on airs that you're such a saint when you're really a bastard, I said in an angry hiss. If this isn't all your stuff, too bad. Oh, here we go. It's your crazy Irish temper, he said, in his oh poor baby voice. Crossing his arms over his chest, he scratched his dark stubble and pulled a mock-serious face. It'll blow over like it always does. You'll come to your senses. He widened his eyes and fluttered his lashes. I thought, really? Is that what I'm going to do? I can't help but act this way because I'm Irish and fiery. It has nothing to do with you, Jason. I pulled myself onto my tiptoes to look him straight in the eye. Guess what, jerk? I've had enough. And when I say I've had enough, that doesn't mean let's talk. That doesn't mean I'm bluffing, and I want you to make promises that you never keep. It means I've had enough. His hands were balled into fists. This was another reason I hated confronting Jason. His mouth told me I was safe with him, while his body language told me to watch out. "Can't be serious," he said as I straightened my arm, thrusting the engagement ring box toward him. He took a step away from me and forced a contemptuous laugh. "Do you know what this would look like?" "What it would look like?" I asked. "It would look like I don't want a husband who treats me like you do. If you're not happy about that, you should have treated me better." "Ha, it's your fault, not mine. You should have said something before. How can I be responsible for not reading your mind? You can't read mine. You have no idea how angry you make me. You don't know how good I treat you. How good you have it," he yelled. Wait. Was I supposed to ask him to not be an asshole all the time? How was that my responsibility? I curled my fingers around the red box, searching my brain for a response. I did ask more than once, I began, and my voice betrayed me. I sounded weak. My fingers unclenched when I realized I was still wearing the engagement ring. In my anger, I had waved the box at him without the ring inside it, an empty threat, if there ever was one. I worked the ring down my finger and said, "Whatever, Jason. Maybe I don't know how good I have it. Maybe I just need to learn. Maybe it's better to be with someone who's condescending instead of being alone. But guess what? I am more than ready to find out." I shoved the ring into the box. His jaw dropped for a moment, and then he recovered, bunching his face into a nasty scowl. "I won't take that back," he said, crossing his arms again and planting his feet among the empty beer bottles. "Well, I'm not keeping it," I said, so quiet I could barely hear myself. I placed the box onto the arm of the nearest Adirondack chair. Still, the action of taking off that ring had broken the spell I was under. Though I'd put off this breakup, all the while hoping for a miracle, it was the only reasonable action I could take. I couldn't trade societal and family acceptance for a lifetime with this miserable man. "There's a reason why you're 36 and still single," he growled. I recoiled. My stomach seemed to drop to my knees as I reconsidered. Part of me wanted to placate him, to show him and the world that I wasn't some impossible-to-live-with middle-aged shrew who didn't deserve a man. But then I thought, this is what he does. He shames me so that he can get his way and look like the hero who's always right. And the way he talks to me always shuts me down. Whenever I should act, I tell myself to step away, think about it, deal with it later, always later. He saw me falter. I could see it in his expression. Maybe he thought he was going to win. But then I thought, if I back down, this will be my reality. There are a lot more reasons that he's 36 and still single. This is the experience I always have, and until it changes, it's the only way I can be, alone and single and safe from someone antagonizing me in my own home. The trash bag lay on the porch. While he held the box with the ring in one hand, the other was still in a fist. "Right back at you," I hissed, and I walked inside, pulling the door closed behind me.